Right now, across the planet, something unprecedented is happening. The Philippines just experienced 3 typhoons in 2 weeks. Iceland's volcanoes won't stop erupting. Japan is recording earthquake swarms that scientists can't fully explain. Italy's supervolcano is showing activity that hasn't been seen in decades. This isn't coincidence. This isn't bad luck. This is a pattern. Earth's disasters are getting worse, more frequent, more intense, more devastating. And the data proves it. Between 1980 and 1999, the world experienced an average of 120 major natural disasters per year. Between 2000 and 2019, that number jumped to 350 per year. That's nearly triple. And since 2020, we're averaging over 400 major disasters annually. The economic damage tells an even starker story. In the 1980s, natural disasters caused roughly $50 billion in global damage per year. In 2023 alone, that number exceeded $250 billion. But raw numbers only tell part of the story. What's really changing is the intensity and the cascading effects. Take hurricanes. Category 4 and 5 hurricanes have increased by 25% since the 1980s. But more importantly, these storms are intensifying faster than ever before. A hurricane can go from Category 1 to Category 5 in less than 24 hours now. Hurricane Otis in 2023 went from tropical storm to Category 5 in just 24 hours before hitting Acapulco, Mexico. That's not normal. That's not how hurricanes used to behave. The Philippines is experiencing this firsthand. 20 typhoons per year has always been normal for the archipelago. But what's changed is the intensity clustering. Multiple super typhoons in a single season. Storms following identical paths within weeks. Rapid intensification that gives communities no time to prepare. Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 was one of the strongest landfalling cyclones ever recorded. Then 2024 and 2025 brought cascading disasters where communities couldn't recover between storms. 3 typhoons in 2 weeks. Families evacuating 3 times in 3 weeks. This isn't the old pattern. This is something new. Now let's talk about heat. Because heat is the engine driving much of this change. Ocean temperatures have increased by approximately 1.5 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Ocean heat content is now at the highest levels ever recorded. And warm oceans are hurricane fuel. Typhoons and hurricanes need water temperatures above 26.5 degrees Celsius to form. Right now, vast areas of the Pacific and Atlantic are consistently exceeding 28 degrees, some areas reaching 30 degrees or higher. This creates conditions for explosive intensification. Storms that should take days to strengthen now do it in hours. But it's not just the tropics. Even regions that rarely experienced extreme weather are now facing unprecedented events. Europe experienced record-breaking heat waves in 2022 and 2023, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in the United Kingdom. Those heat waves killed tens of thousands of people. In 2021, the Pacific Northwest of the United States and Canada experienced a heat dome that shattered all-time temperature records by 5 to 10 degrees. Entire towns burned to the ground. Hundreds died from heat exposure in regions where air conditioning was considered unnecessary. This is heat that infrastructure wasn't designed for. Heat that ecosystems can't handle. Heat that creates conditions for disasters that were previously impossible. And extreme heat creates secondary disasters. Droughts, wildfires, crop failures. California has experienced 5 of its largest wildfires in recorded history in just the last 5 years. Australia's 2019-2020 bushfire season burned an area larger than many countries. Greece, Turkey, Canada, regions across the globe are seeing fire seasons that last longer and burn hotter than ever before. Now let's talk about water. Because while some regions are burning, others are drowning. Extreme precipitation events have increased by 30% globally since the mid-20th century. When the atmosphere is warmer, it holds more moisture. And when that moisture releases, it falls as deluge. Pakistan in 2022 experienced flooding that submerged 1/3 of the entire country. 33 million people affected. Over 1,700 deaths. 8 million displaced. Economic damage exceeding $30 billion. That wasn't a traditional monsoon gone wrong. That was a climate-altered weather pattern that dumped unprecedented rainfall. Libya in 2023 experienced catastrophic flooding when 2 dams failed during an extreme rainfall event. Entire neighborhoods were swept into the Mediterranean Sea. Over 10,000 people died. These are 1 in 1,000-year floods, happening multiple times per decade now. The statistical models we use to predict extreme weather are breaking down because the climate baseline keeps shifting. The western United States is experiencing a megadrought, the driest 22-year period in over 1,200 years. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are at historically low levels. The Rhine River in Europe became so shallow that cargo ships couldn't navigate it. The Amazon River experienced unprecedented droughts. These aren't random weather variations. These are systematic shifts in precipitation patterns driven by a warming atmosphere. And then there are the glaciers. Glaciers worldwide have lost approximately 9 trillion tons of ice since 1961. That's accelerating. In the last 2 decades, glacial melt has doubled compared to the previous 20 years. The Himalayas feed rivers that provide water for 2 billion people across Asia, and they're melting faster than anywhere else on the planet. As they disappear, water security for billions becomes uncertain. Now let's address earthquakes and volcanoes. Because while climate change directly affects weather, it's also having indirect effects on geological activity. Earthquakes themselves aren't increasing in frequency. But what's changing is where people are and how vulnerable they've become. Urban populations have exploded in seismically active regions. Istanbul, Tehran, Tokyo, Manila, Los Angeles. Megacities with tens of millions of people built directly on major fault lines. The 1999 Izmit earthquake in Turkey killed 17,000 people. The 2023 Turkey-Syria earthquakes killed over 50,000. Similar magnitude, but 3 times the death toll because of where people are living. But there's another connection. Ice sheet melt is actually changing the weight distribution on Earth's crust. When massive ice sheets that have compressed the crust for thousands of years suddenly melt, the crust rebounds upward. This can trigger earthquakes in previously stable regions, remove billions of tons of weight from the crust, and the crust responds. Volcanoes are showing concerning patterns as well. Mount Sinabung in Indonesia was dormant for 400 years before erupting in 2010. Calbuco in Chile was dormant for 43 years before violently erupting in 2015. Taal in the Philippines erupted in 2020 after 43 years of dormancy. And here's what makes all of this worse: cascading disasters. Events that trigger other events, creating compound crises that overwhelm response systems. The Philippines has become the poster child for this. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake strikes Cebu in September. Families move into tent cities. 5 weeks later, Typhoon Tino forces them to evacuate again. 1 week after that, Typhoon Uwan approaches. Communities can't recover because the next disaster arrives before they finish rebuilding from the last one. In California, drought creates conditions for wildfires. The fires burn away vegetation that prevents erosion. When rain finally comes, mudslides destroy communities. One disaster creates vulnerability to the next. These cascading effects mean that individual disasters can't be analyzed in isolation anymore. Everything is connected. So why is all of this happening? The uncomfortable truth is that we've changed the fundamental operating system of our planet. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've added over 2.4 trillion tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. CO2 concentrations have increased from 280 parts per million to over 420 parts per million today. That's a 50% increase. That additional carbon dioxide traps heat. The planet has warmed approximately 1.1 to 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. A warmer atmosphere holds more moisture. More moisture means more extreme precipitation. More heat means more energy for storms. Warmer oceans mean stronger hurricanes. Melting ice means rising seas and changing geological stress patterns. Change one variable, atmospheric temperature, and you change everything. And here's the truly frightening part. We're locked into further warming even if we stopped all emissions tomorrow. The warming we're experiencing today is the result of emissions from decades ago. Current projections suggest we're on track for 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100 if current trends continue. What does that mean for disasters? It means what we're experiencing now is just the beginning. These trends will continue. They'll accelerate. Disasters that are rare today will become common. Scientists project that by mid-century, what we now call a 1 in 100-year flood will occur every 10 to 15 years in many regions. Hurricane intensity will continue increasing. Heat waves that currently kill thousands will kill tens of thousands. But here's what's important. This isn't inevitable in the worst-case sense. We still have agency. We still have choices. Every fraction of a degree of warming we prevent means fewer disasters, less suffering, fewer deaths. The difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees of warming is millions of lives. We know what needs to happen. Rapid reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Transition away from fossil fuels. Massive investment in adaptation and resilience. The technology exists. The economics increasingly favor clean energy. What's missing is political will and coordinated action at the scale required. Because here's the reality we all face. Disasters aren't going away. They're getting worse. The question isn't whether we'll face more catastrophic events. We will. The question is how prepared we'll be. The Philippines knows this reality intimately. Filipino communities are learning that resilience has limits. That preparation only goes so far when disasters cascade faster than recovery is possible. The rest of the world is learning the same lesson. No one is safe from this. Wealthy countries can't build walls high enough. Insurance can't cover everything. What we can do is be honest about what's happening. Stop pretending this is normal climate variability. Stop treating each disaster as an isolated incident. Recognize the pattern, understand the cause, and act accordingly. Earth's disasters are getting worse because we've made them worse. We've changed the planet's climate, and the planet is responding in ways that are becoming catastrophic for human civilization. The Philippines experiences 3 typhoons in 2 weeks. Iceland's volcanoes keep erupting. California burns every summer. Pakistan drowns. Europe bakes. The Arctic melts. These aren't separate stories. This is one story. The story of a planet responding to the changes we've made to it. Stay informed. Understand the risks in your region. Prepare your family. Support action on climate change. Because disasters aren't getting better. They're getting worse. And what we do in the next few years will determine just how much worse they get. I'm Beneath the Depths. Subscribe for coverage of Earth's changing climate and the disasters reshaping our world.